looking into these long formulas and algorithms, I would be, I probably would not be the person I am right now, that's for sure. I'd still be a nice guy, so to speak, right? But I would not have the capabilities I do. That came by way of me persevering. And perseverance is a key. Not even having a give up gene inside of you, right? Because giving up something is quitting something means you're willing to let things die, right? That's more of a mental type of attitude that you can have. You can also change that. In other words, your entire mentality can change. And God knows in this day and age, the way people are. For example, this you guys know about what happened with this individual who ran through those people at a parade. You have to ask yourself, what mental state are people giving into, right? Listen, we know evil is out there. Evil does exist, right? We know it's out there. And to give into evil, what mental state must you be in to give into evil? Well, I can narrow that down or summarize that by saying that people are believing in lies. Here's a lie. You ready? I'm going to give you a lie, a common lie. You're a mistake. That's a lie, right? Here's another lie. Somebody's trying to steal something from you, whether that be a person or an item or whatever the case is. That's another lie. Do you know why? No one can steal what truly belongs to you. How about that? Now, you cannot keep what does not belong to you. That you're just mediocre. That's another big lie, right? That's a huge lie because you're not. You're a vessel in the house of the living God. And before the Lord puts his vessels in very special places, he does just like we do. He'll take a vessel and polish it up. You know, that polishing is abrasive. It rubs off all the impurities so that when he puts it up there, it is shining in its full brilliance. That's what he's doing to us. So we can expect the heaviness of that polishing to take place right about now. That's when your lives turn around. The Lord is working so strong these days. You know, this weekend when I was working on the site, I have to admit, I got so excited about the site because these ideas started rushing in. These solutions started rushing in. It was something else. Not to mention phone calls. I began to see phone numbers on the COT line that I didn't see before. And what that is more and more people they want to tap into some of what we're doing, which is also often. That means, right, if we can carry a lot of ministries, do you not realize how fulfilling that's going to be able to contribute to the gospel of Jesus Christ in a variety of ways? That's awesome. That's just like in my life, because all the time I could not directly contribute to the saints. I would always pick out 2 or 3 places that I could contribute to, knowing that they contribute to the saints. But in that same fashion, though, I want to contribute to those who put forth great effort to build the kingdom of God in very special ways. I'm going to pour in my time and my knowledge into those things for the sake of the kingdom. We're very close now. And even those who are, a lot of people sometimes, they make a mistake looking for everybody to go at one time. But let me share this with you. Every single few minutes, somebody has gone home to be with the Lord. Every time a section of this day diminishes, right? Somebody has gone to be with the Lord. Today is somebody's, I guess you could say today is somebody's birthday, right? They're born into a brand new world. And that brand new world, we can barely see this one. By the way, tonight's Q&A, right? Tonight's Q&A. So I want you guys to, let's get leveled here today. Let's spend some time, just an hour or two, to get everybody leveled on one plane. So I want you guys to ask what you may ask. All right. And so everybody is on the same page here, right? I'm sure you guys want to ask me some things about current events and where this may stand and where that may stand, and we'll go ahead and get those answered so that when we go back into the studies, we can be students again. I do believe, listen, guys, I'm going to say it again. I'm a strong believer that the Lord is preparing vessels to inhabit the Holy Spirit. All right. And that what that means is that means the power of the kingdom is going to rest in the hands of many of the saints. A saint is not somebody who would call themselves a saint. A saint is whomever Jesus Christ names a saint. All right. It has nothing to do with mankind. In fact, mankind can name what he wants to name a saint, right? But the days of being powerless, those are useless days. And it shouldn't be that way. When Jesus Christ names a person who's following him, he will fill that person with the Holy Spirit. That person is going to walk around with great responsibility, great discipline, right? And the power of the Holy Ghost. In fact, the Lord didn't send anybody forward without the power of the Holy Ghost. Do you know that? Because it takes the power of the Holy Ghost to see right through some of the cloak and dagger this world is so laden with, right? And I tell you, he stands ready. He said so in the Old Testament, it was promised. And in fact, it was established, a way was established in the Old Testament by the patriarchs, going through their generational sons and prophets. And it was administered by Jesus Christ. So through Christ, it is a complete act, and it stands ready for us right now. Nothing happened to it. It's just that from generation to generation, let's go ahead and face it, we were the ones who drifted away from the simplicity and truth of the word into a materialistic world. By the way, the nature of this war that we're in right now, this spiritual war, is largely material. I'll explain that later on. Somebody says, space update, please. Flying debris in contact with Earth, and said, well, we have some troubles. And did you guys notice? Did you guys notice that, well, you'd have to be on a sat phone to do this, but if you're familiar with sat phones, there was a hiccup the other day in sat phones. That also spread out to almost like a bottleneck in cell phone communication in a lot of cities. In fact, the bandwidth of 5G was downgraded for a time. And they have an AI backing. Here's the way the AI works. And this is why it's going to be incredibly difficult to see what's broken and what's not. AI, if a communication line breaks, AI can catch that long before anybody else can. And it can start to reroute all communications. You're talking about billions of conversations. In less than a few seconds, it can reroute that very quickly. We do have some damaged satellites. We have some compromised satellites. In fact, space is not looking too good right now. It's just not looking too good. If you think Russia was the only problem we had in space, you're somewhat sadly mistaken. There's some more problems up there, including we have a large body that is, well, they got to make a decision to either shoot it down or because they can't maneuver it anymore. It's out of fuel. So they normally have to shoot those things down. Here's the problem. This thing has a fuel cell, and if they hit it the wrong way with debris flying up there already at a pretty fast rate, we're going to have a pool table type event take place in space, right? So everything has to be timed just right. Space Command and Air Force Command. These guys are working overtime. My hat's off to them. They are working overtime to get these problems resolved. They're very creative as far as saving a lot of things. And folks, before I continue, I want to tell you something. We have to be careful how we look at everything these days. Try to see everything in truth, not our truth, right? But the Lord's truth. Okay. For example, technology. How many of you think technology is evil? How many? How many think technology is evil? Type a 1 if you believe technology is evil. Anybody? way you guys were talking last time, seemed like a lot of you would say technology is evil. How many think technology is evil? I'm going to go ahead and give you my view on that. I do not believe technology is evil. I believe that technology is a tool method. If that's what it is, the person behind it or what's behind it is going to make it evil or good. It's how we use things, right? Anything can be a weapon, and just about anything can be utilized for the good of another human being. Anything, even a missile, can be used for the good of another human being. Even a nuclear warhead can be used for the good of humanity. You don't believe that? You can break down a nuclear warhead and do some wonderful things with it in hospitals and power generation and some other things you don't know about. Kind of like what the corporations have, their backup power units or nuclear power units. So you guys know this? They don't necessarily depend upon the grid, which is why they get away with things, right? But it's how we utilize things, which makes it evil or good. Now, can it be a platform to be utilized by spirits? Of course it can. That's my firm belief. See, I can't help it, guys. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the angels. I believe in the Father, right? I know about the demonic entities, and which I call critters. They're just in the critter category. Those living entities that occupy darkness, right? The Bible gives answer as to why many of the planets are dead. It gives answer to why many of the planets are like they are. I know they have found different, they found to date thousands of solar systems, just like this one. They found inhabitable planets all over the place. Mankind has skipped and jumped all over the place. Mankind has been through things of which people never came back from. Parts of mankind are horrified by experiments they had because they attempted to peek into the spiritual realm and something took them, right? And they never came back right. They weren't right in the head because it's not meant for us to see all of that with the bodies that we have. We have because of emotions, that's a severe limitation on what we can handle. Think of your Father in heaven, who is knowledgeable, the deepest darkness and the greatest light, right? That means he can see all the demons in detail, know everything about the demonic entities, the worst of their shapes, the worst of their doings, and yet he is still a good Father. What would it take for us to do the same thing? To know of all the elements of darkness, but to stand good, to be good and wholesome and upright and continue to choose good. Right? Can we do that too? Well, emotions get in the way. There's something called the reaction, that reactionary emotion of fear of self, which is actually a spirit that sends your emotions into chaos. But because we have emotions, we lose control. We also lack a lot of self-discipline, right? Which is something we really need to work on. And all these things would help you get through the times ahead. Because believe it or not, we're headed for a pretty rough road. It's my intention to let you know about that road, right? To condition people to handle that road so they don't fall apart, regardless of where they are, and to kind of walk through that time boldly, right? To be a David during that time, and not one of these. We're not talking about the fake Davids. Here's a fake David. A fake David is somebody who will talk the talk, but when something happens, they're the first ones gone. No, I'm talking about you maintaining your peace, and then when the world breaks down, right? For example, like this accident that happened, it's so difficult sometimes for people to discuss death. It is. They don't want to discuss death. But death is a natural part of life. And I even think of that backwards. And most people celebrate somebody's birth. Well, I know birth, right, is somebody graduating in a hardship. And death is somebody being called home into freedom. That's what I know it as. So that's why we're passers-by. Anyway, how many people were totally compromised by what happened with this driver going through all those people? That was horrific. But it's not the worst thing that happened that day. Worst things happen all the time. When we get a sneak peek into the potential of humanity, we get frightened and angry and we're compromised. My intention is that all of us, if the Lord can grant me a way to speak, a way to write, whatever the case, whatever he gives me, so it would help all of you stand in an upright position, no matter what happens, to stand as strong as steel, as strong as iron in the worst of situations, still knowing, not just proclaiming, but knowing the peace of Christ, knowing the goodness of the Father, having self-discipline, right? Being able to do something about those broken hearts that are all around you. But you have to be able to stand, right? You can't fall over and then get up, right? In a time like that, because you'll have other people fall with you. But to stand firm in God's truth, knowing that humanity has done much worse and that they're going to continue to do so, that begins by us not denying the truth. You know what the truth is? Humanity is not getting better. Humanity is degrading. They're degrading. They've given over their personal sovereignty to corporations. Do you know that about humanity? They've done this already. And so what happens is they become somewhat of a slave to what they have built, which means that's a very bad position because they'll bolster, they'll increase whatever they built to have power over everything. That's the phase we're in right now, until ultimately this, whatever it is, can run autonomously by itself, make decisions by itself without human interaction. And then man becomes a true slave to a system it has built. And still, they're going to be proud of it because they built it, right? But for us not to get lost in those moments is key to walking through these end days. Not to join in with the crowd, being proud of humanity's group, but knowing that you're a child of the Most High, your body is temporary, you won't be here for long, and that we have a lot of work to do because a lot of people are faltering. They're giving up. Lots of people are giving up, right? In the same space of time, there's a type revival and there's a falling away happening at the same time, right? If we can actually know this, we won't be shaken. If we know that bad things are coming and we know details about those things, we're not going to be shaken. You a lot of good for those who have no instruction. If you can receive instruction from the Lord, you will give good instruction to those around you. But if you're emotionally compromised, it will debilitate you. And that walk begins now. It begins now. Right, right. Somebody had a question in there. Was that, wait a minute, let me go down to 3.7 here. 3.7 says, wait a minute, I got you. I can't wait to, I don't like this chat room anymore, guys. The other one is just so much better. Oh, that wasn't the question. Can this new giant technological that is going around different, can it be possessed by a demon? Okay, spirits and electronics. Let me explain something to you. If you guys know the electron theory, right? The electron theory, there are some tests you can run yourself because you, listen, don't get all, let me see how can I put this. You don't have to sample this yourself, right? I'm going to just tell you about something. There's an experiment you can do yourself. It's an experiment, not with esoterics or anything, just with you and electronics. Now, I'm going to tell you something here. I want you guys to listen. You can directly affect the processor of your computer based upon your emotions and your will. Do you know that? Do you know that? Every single computer has a, let's call it an internal trash can. And what it does is it takes number overruns, and it dumps it into this waste basket. They can only be zeros and ones. When you're feeling positive and you have a strong will behind you, right? It is natural for anybody who would investigate your computer to go and find a bunch of ones. If you're feeling negative or you're depressed in any way, it is natural for any computer scientist to go into your computer, pull up the logs, and find a bunch of zeros. This happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is consistent from one person to another. It takes no special ability whatsoever. And here's what's happening. You are constantly emitting your intention, which is part of your will, right? And your emotional state of being. You're constantly transmitting this. It can actually be captured from the air by electronic devices, and it can be discerned. or multiplexed into quantifiable data or usable data. Right? So somebody can actually probe to see what the mood of a room is. That's a fact. That's not, esoterics. It's not dealing with ghosts. It's because your neurons are constantly emitting pulses, electrical impulses. They're constantly emitting an electric field with that also. They're constantly affecting all the atoms around you are being effective, and you're doing it. You're causing them to either be polarized in one direction or the other. When you're feeling negative, right, they're polarized in relation to the environment around you. They're almost, let's just say they're pointed straight down when you're negative. When you're positive, they're pointed straight up, right? This would be the difference of north and south when you're dealing with magnets, positive and negative, when you're dealing with electrons, right? And that can actually be read. And this happens all the time. For example, some of you guys, you found this out. It's not, it has nothing to do with any ghost or anything else. But when you're negative, light bulbs burn out, don't they? When you're negative, you're electric. Anything you have that's electrical can break. It can not work right. You can interrupt the electron flow very easily when you're negative, right? When you're positive, you can actually notice, well, everybody can notice that, especially LED bulbs, they'll burn at a higher current. You can actually increase the current flow of a circuit when you're positive like this. Now, that sounds so weird, but I want you to think about something. You're essentially made up of metals. Do you guys know this? Do you know you're made up of metals? Do you know that when a person dies, the normal cause of death is an aneurysm? And an aneurysm is actually a copper deficiency. It means that the veins lost their elasticity, right? So they have a copper deficiency. You have copper, silver, titanium, zinc. You have all the metals in your body. In fact, all the elements of the earth are in your body. They're in your body. And so essentially what electrons are doing in your body is traveling from one area to the other. Even your cells can send off a zapping pulse of electricity when they're in trouble, right? They also have chemical signaling. So your body uses chemical signals, right? Instead of like a radio signal, your body uses chemical signals, but your brain uses electric signals. Do you know that? Electrochemical signals are what your body can produce and yield a pretty high value to the point where you can put a tab on your head, somewhere on your head, and your thoughts can be discerned. That's a BCI, brain to computer interface. Right? Some of the guys right now, they'll plug something on their heads and they'll control their cell phone with it. Right? They're about, how much are those things? About $200. So you dial your phones and answer messages and everything else, not by looking at something, but by thought. They already mapped out your waveform, your brain waveform. And they have already mapped out language from your brain. They've mapped out memory from your brain. They've mapped out emotional states from your brain. So now they can interpret by way of a computer how you feel, what you're saying, and what you intend to do. They've been doing this for a long time. It's why the new Generation 6 fighters, they don't have controls. They don't have controls because the pilot's going to be in a type of pod. So when he goes through high G's, he can be totally pressurized, not pass out, right? Or they're going to have to take the pilot all the way out. At any rate, some of your drones that are flying right now are flying not autonomously as you would think, but somebody's wearing a helmet, and whatever their thoughts are being translated into flight maneuvers, right? And in actions of whatever the actions are, letting off chaff or missile or something like that. But they're flying it without their hands, is what I'm telling you. And that's a pretty nice system they have going there. It's not miracle electronics or anything else. It's simply reading the impulses coming off your head, coming out of your body with everything you do. Right? It's why animals can pick up on things. It's not that animals are not sensing what people think they are. Animals can smell chemical changes. Animals are very sensitive to electronic pulses, right? So if you change, so will that animal. And the animal can see in a way that you wouldn't believe, right? But this is happening all the time. So when it comes to spirits, a spirit is nothing more than the essence right? That, let's say, the main charge of life itself. And so a spirit can easily manipulate electronics. In fact, that's how you do it, by way of the spirit. Here's what's funny. You take when a person dies, right? And their brain is still living and their heart is still pumping, but they would be considered not in a coma or something like that. Guess what? No emissions. It's almost like their soul is not there all the time, but there are bursts to a coma patient. They'll have bursts that they pick up, right? And normally when they go back and talk to the person, if the person can remember, certain parts, they'll say, well, I left and I saw the whole hospital and I went to every single room, and they'll describe things that nobody else could know unless they've been there. Right. Now, that may seem wild to a lot of people because they've been watching too much television. But if you sit down and think about just a few simple things, right, it takes all this fanciful stuff that sounds like fantasy, it puts it in a very different category. And then that's when you really start learning a few things. Anyway, I forgot where I was going with that. So let me get to some more of these questions. Wait a minute, guys. I don't see where's my tea at? But I don't have any tea here. Let me see. Let's see what we got here in reversing. Let's see. All right, guys, start the questioning over right now. Go. So can that biological giant thing walk off its stage? What do you mean? Big old giant thing. What big old giant thing? What are you talking about? A robot or something like that? What are you talking about? Do you guys know about the actual robots that are out there? You've likely seen one. You just didn't notice it, to be honest with you. I bet you, I can almost bet you all of you have seen an autonomous vehicle already. You just didn't know it was autonomous or operating by itself without human interaction. Let's see, Mike, you said the Bible teaches on the condition of other planets. Can you point out where? Well, what is a planet? A planet is a body, isn't it? A body that when you're talking about celestial, listen, man made a distinction between stars and planets and moons. Man made that distinction. And if you look carefully, if you look in the Bible, you're going to see other categories that are not like man's categories. See, this is one area I'm very careful with. Man has his categories, right? Man will call a moon a moon. Man will call the sun the sun. Now, we can find that too in the Bible. But when it comes to celestial bodies, right, they were called celestial bodies. Bodies, heavenly bodies is what they were called, right? They were not called planets and they were not called stars. They were called bodies. And when you go back in the Old Testament, God spoke of what he created. He also said that men have made an error looking into the heavens. In other words, their interpretation of what the heavens are wrong. That's what our Father said. It is so funny, too.
Angels and demons. That's it.
Countries think they own the land they're in. Wrong. They don't own it. This is God's earth. This is our Father's earth. Man goes around staking his claim, and he's about to get a pretty big eviction notice. It's not man's lands. It's not. God gave one um, people a land. He really did. Now, he left the other lands to the heathen. He left it to them. In other words, until a very special time. He had only given his people a specific land belongs, but them do what they will for playground and play. But now you walk out in the playground and some of the kids have built a castle and they think they can rule the whole playground. Actual kids over here, but all of them are children and they don't own the playground. And so when the eviction notice comes, they're going to say, no fair. No fair. Everybody's going to get that eviction notice. That letter that says you don't own anything. It all belongs to me. That's what the Lord will say. And he's going to make that statement by removing all the little sandcastles they built, right? All this stuff we built, goodbye, bye-bye. We're going to see what the Father truly intended, right? What he truly designed. We're going to see that well, it's not going to be so good for somebody who has their heart and minds invested in what they built. But for those impressed, right? It's the old adage in a classroom. The children who listen to the teacher, who follow instruction, those are normally the kids that are bullied when the teacher leaves, aren't they? Oh, look at him. He's not doing it. Everybody's shooting spit wads and they're talking. And the kid who's paying attention, he has one thought. You know what his thought is? I can't wait until the teacher comes back. The rest of the children maximize their time because the teacher is gone. And when the teacher comes back to class, who do they see first? The bad ones, don't they? Because they're jumping and popping all over the place. And the good one is so silent, but also so bullied. The teacher will often walk up to the good ones and say, are you okay? Well, that same thing is going to happen to us, right? It's going to happen to us. The teacher left the classroom. The kids are cutting up, and the teacher's about to come back. And so, but the amazing thing happens when the teacher's gone. All the kids expose what their heart really is. They start doing everything that their little hearts desire. Now, again, the good child, he wants the teacher to come back because a good child likes to learn. All right? The bad children, they already know it. They already know it. That's what bad kids do. I already know that. The good child is silent because they want to learn. The bad children, they don't want to hear anything. They already know that stuff. They're not going to use. Teacher doesn't know what they're talking about. Well, in our case, the teacher's coming back. And the teacher's been gone for quite some time. And the children are really cutting up. But he's waiting until he's going to catch all of them in the act, right? If a teacher left a classroom and then turned around real fast before the door even shut, came and sat down, she wouldn't catch anybody doing anything. Because why? Children always check to see if the teacher actually left. Same thing happened to us. After time, like the time we live in now, some people don't even believe. They heard of Christ, but they don't believe in Christ, right? They make jokes about his name. They've lost the reverence of who he is. They have no fear of the Father. They utilize the word of God the way they want to and all this, that, and the other because they have no fear, no respect. And when he returns, they're the ones that are going to be in shock. But the Lord's children will say, he is the one we waited for, right? Same thing about life and death. When a person without Christ, without direction, when they die, before they die, they're terrified. Because the truth is, they really didn't have a firm belief in Christ. They wanted stuff in this world. They have a desire for things in this world. But somebody who truly belongs to Christ, they don't want stuff in this world. They do what they have to do because they have to live also. But if they ever had the chance, if the Lord ever reached his hand out and said, come with me, they would go. Because they don't see this as home. But a worldly person, right? They fight for things in the earth. That's what they fight for. And then you have those who straddle the fence, so they have no identity whatsoever, because one day they defend the worldly way and another day they're picking up for God's way. So it didn't work out too well for them, right? Didn't work out too well. Anyway, but we're about to see quite a bit. And you know what, guys? I'm trying to get, there's a gentleman who flew, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's like a couple dozen space missions. I would like that individual to let you guys know something about the nature of distant space. Now, by law, you can't talk about immediate space, you can talk about distant space. And if that gentleman could explain to you guys the nature of distant space, your understanding would open wide up, because a lot of people think they know what it looks like. It does not look like the pictures, and they do not by law show what's actually out in space from here. When you look at space from the Earth, you're looking through, 7 filters. Do you guys know that? So if you look through 7 filters, you're not going to see much. You just won't. If you take those filters off, if the filters all of a sudden left, there would not be one person listening to me right now that would ever dispute um, certain subjects ever again, because they just have to stop everything. It does not look the same way out there that it does here. Even when you're up at very high altitude, space is very different. It is extremely different. And it's actually jaw dropping, because there's not a spot you can look at that's black. Not one spot. Somebody says, Michael, how come space radiation does this cure cancer? How come space radiation does what? I missed that one. Does what? Somebody help me out here. Someone help me out. Let's see. Pause. You guys talking? I've lost track of which question he is answering. Guys, do me a favor with your questions, right? Restate them. Scrib asked something and said, how come space radiation does it cure cancer on people? I have no idea what you're talking about. Clarify that one. Please clarify that one. Clarify that one. Do we have danger of meteorites? You better believe it. Quite a few of them. Listen, here's what you'll see in the future. You ready? You're going to, I don't know, well, it's not going to be hard to see, but we're going to be dealing with a lot of soot. A lot of soot. Burnt materials like tar from roofing. A lot of black smoke. You're going to be dealing with certain highways that are, you just can't use anymore. Cracked highways. They're going to be all over the place. It's almost impossible to tell exactly where these particles are going to really hit. There'll be a difference in the sea. Hardly anybody's going to be, people are going to be afraid to go to the coastlines. They're going to be afraid to live on the coast, period. You're going to have an aggravation event also. Listen, there was a time, I spent time in a place where it kept having tornadoes, right? 1 week a tornado would come, then everything would die down. Another week a tornado would come, and everything would die down. Another week a tornado would come, and it kept doing that. It did that to the point where you get wore down from worry, because you don't know about your own preparations, right? Then you get to the point when you've dealt with that type thing for so long, you get to the point where you prepare yourselves as best you can, but you don't live your life in this free state, because you realize that everything is temporary, especially when you live in a place that's under threat. Can you imagine being bombarded by debris every week? Can you imagine having your roof redone, and then 2 days later, your roof is gone again? Can you imagine having your car totally torn to shreds by impacts over and over and over again? Can you imagine living in that type environment where you're constantly trying to worry about your possessions, your safety, your shelter, and things become a bit, unstable? Can you imagine the pressure upon people like that? This is why God says it is not a good time for anybody, for no one. That's why he also said only a fool asks for the day of the Lord, because there's no good in the day of the Lord for anybody. Now, the day of the Lord is not one day, it's a time period, right? The day of the Lord's a time period, but it's a time period that's echoed back in history. This just happens to be the time when the Messiah came, meaning it's the last time. But you're looking at a bunch of things happening over and over again until people are really worn out, right? They're severely worn out, right? Somebody says, let me see, I saw Hive in there. That's the question, does Mike know about the Internet of Bodies and the Hive net? And people do they targeted by technology? And what can people do that are targeted by technology? You need not hide from technology. You don't need to do that. Can technology influence your thoughts and your behaviors? Absolutely. Absolutely. Why do you think I could do a demonstration with you guys, but it will be unorthodox. I would have to give a couple of people the evidence first and then do the test so they can present the evidence that will match it perfectly. In other words, you can be programmed through electronics, through any presentation, you can be programmed. You can be set up to fail. The stock market works that way, by the way. If you were to ever look at the stock market, I can almost guarantee you that you would invest your money at a time interval that's been designed for you to throw your money away into. You would never make a dime off the stock market the first time because you're working with these preset of visuals. You're going to see it a certain way, therefore you're going to react a specific way. And it's so funny that about 90% of people who go into the stock market do the exact same thing. And they lose money because they're programmed to do that. Why? Because they trust what they see. That's the key. If you trust what you see, you're effectively programmed by what you see. Now, let me ask you this. How many people, this will really get you. So all you academics in there, do you trust what you've been taught? Because you did not teach yourself. Somebody else taught you. And whoever taught you about something somebody else wrote. So let me ask you this. Do you trust your academics? Do you trust what you've been taught? Can anybody answer that? I'm talking about those who have a degree, those who are well versed in a variety of subjects and somewhat qualified subjects. Do you trust your degrees? Do you trust academia? That's one of those gotcha questions. Because if a person comes out and says, well, no, I don't trust it, I'll say, well, why do you utilize it all the time? Why are you utilizing academia, right? And that the historical proof shown to you in that setting, right? To enter into conversations about spiritual things. And then if you say, well, no, I don't trust it. Or I do trust it, I'll say, well, so you trust the writings of somebody else's thoughts and concepts. You trust somebody else's thoughts and concepts above what? Then you have a comparison deal. In other words, listen, academia is nothing more than mastering what man has given man. Academia, that's what it is. From language, right? We can exclude mathematics a bit, the basic mathematics, not this other types, but we can exclude that. The rest of it is nothing more than mastering the knowledge of men. That's it. That's what it is, right? A computer scientist, a doctor, whatever the case is, you're mastering the knowledge of men, right? But who's going to master the knowledge of God given by the power of the Holy Spirit? By the Holy Spirit. Notice I made that distinction because I always make that distinction. You can learn the Bible, right, yourself without the Holy Spirit. I promise you, you're going to have it wrong. But with the Holy Spirit, you're going to see, which causes you to realize you don't know much. But you'll also be free of a great many burdens. You won't carry a burden. The only burden you'll truly carry is your heart of compassion for somebody else. But you won't be under a grave amount of stress anymore. That's for certain. All right. Now, guys, I'm trying to get these questions up here. Now, Rabino is supposed to be helping me out order these things. Somebody's got to capture these questions and put them in there and make sure I get them, because when this chat moves, it moves. It's hard to keep up. It's very difficult to keep up. People with cancer get radiation treatment, so how come space radiation does not help them, or does it? No, no, no. When people get radiation, right, that's targeted radiation. It's also, let's call it small field radiation, which means it is specifically designed to terminate the cancer, to disrupt the cancer. Now you have a amount of human cells also that will perish because of those treatments, right? Space radiation or galactic cosmic rays are high speed particles, right? That's more like the Hadron Collider. Do you guys know that? So galactic cosmic rays are like a bunch of CERN tubes pointed right at us coming in. You don't want that. You're looking at high doses of gamma, ultraviolet, and all those different in the spectrum that's very harmful, can knock the nuclei right out of a cell. You don't want that. Cancer is nothing more than flooding, right? That cancer with high doses of radiation to kill the cancer and some friendly cells. But that type treatment is also mixed with other things. So it's you call it a specialized or local radiation. When you're receiving, you can't capture radiation with galactic cosmic rays and then utilize them on a person, because those are high speed particles. You can redirect them, right? But then you would that's very dangerous for astronauts and everybody else. For example, if our ozone does not hold up in certain areas, and if the sun stopped its or held back its activities, right, all of us would begin to die off the same day, right? Because galactic cosmic rays would tear us up to pieces. We would become liquid within hours. That's what would happen with those high-speed particles. Um, so we need the sun and its rays and solar flares and CMEs, and we need all that. And that holds back the galactic cosmic rays. It creates an effective bubble over the whole solar system. But one day that bubble is going to collapse. We won't have the protection from the sun, right? And when that day comes, all those high-speed particles are going to breach the protective sphere around the Earth by the sun, and it's going to reach us. In which case, part of the prophecy is going to be true in Revelation, when men were scorched by great heat, and they blasphemed God for that. Right? Maddie says, "Do you think you are aware of a specific event coming from space that will fulfill a biblical prophecy?" Yeah, I do. I do. What is it? I likely won't discuss it. Here's why. Here's why. There are certain things I'll never discuss. Number one, there's no context for it, right? And when there's no context, it becomes a point of argument. That's all it does. It won't yield any further understanding for anybody. It just becomes one of those speculative points at which people can argue. I had a dream one time, amongst other dreams, and you guys know I don't like dreams. I don't. But I had a dream one time, and I received some instruction in this dream. And there was always a figure in my dreams that would instruct me. And this is when I was tiny. I was little. And I would always listen to this person. This person seemed like it was just a very good nature around this person, but this person was very trustworthy, I would say. Anyway, I was instructed that you cannot show a blind man what you want him to see, right? You cannot speak to a deaf man and have him hear. They have to have their sight restored. They must be able to see. They must be able to hear, right? Can you imagine someone going up to a blind guy and says, "Hey, come here, I want to show you something"? That's not going to work out, right? Without context, we are blind. Without some type of relation to the subject, we're not going to be able to hear it. The truth has been given to every single person on earth about several subjects. The problem is Most of the people on earth cannot hear that evidence because they're in a very peculiar state of mind. You've been shown the truth numerous times, but here's another truth. Because there's no context behind what you saw, it becomes nothing, right? If I were to discuss the specifics of an event without context, in other words, this one will take a bit of seeing, right? A bit of experience. It becomes one of those mute points. It'll become a subject of ridicule, right? It'll become a nothing conversation, right? Which is a wasted conversation, and it won't edify anybody because it's so far out of timing. It would almost be like if you were in the time of Adam and Eve and you began to discuss Revelation, that would be so far out of context for Adam and Eve, right? But in the end of days, which by the way is going to be so many generations far from you, Adam and Eve, that you know. Just hold on to that. Well, see, the Lord has us know things that are useful that we're going to have to deal with, and He will reveal it to all the saints. There is nothing I can know that you don't know. That's impossible. It's impossible. And God will never give a truth in a secret place to just one of us, but reveals everything spiritually, right? Now, as we are exposed to more and more events in this world, all of us are going to be able to hear and see in a very familiar way. And we'll always be able to communicate with each other on a specific level because the Lord does not have one person in which He bestows the entirety of the truth, but He reveals what He reveals by way of a spirit. So all partakers of spirit must house a truth before a truth is ever spoken. If somebody speaks prematurely, right, and people don't have a context, they can never verify internally that truth, therefore becomes just nothing, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. A lot of sense. What do you base your reasoning on when you say this is the last cycle? Well, this is the last cycle. It's one of those that points to what Jesus said. That specifically points towards what Jesus said. At no other time in the Bible did God say, this is it. No other time in the Bible. When Jesus spoke, and they recorded His statements in the New Testament, Jesus spoke to us, telling us, these are the last times. The prophets spoke of the Messiah coming in the last days. Now, the last days in the Bible and the last time literally means the last age, right? The last age. So in the last age, because Jesus spoke of this age, right? The prophets spoke of this age. They had issues in their own ages, but this last age, right, was just one of these renowned subjects that goes on in the New Testament. And Jesus continually told us what He did when He went to go sit at the right hand of the Father. That was fulfillment of the Old Testament prophets' sayings. Now, there's still a couple of more things that have to be fulfilled, but Jesus told us Himself, these are the last times. And then you get to the book of Revelation, and when He says the time is at hand, we know we're dealing with an age. Now, listen, this is one thing. When you're dealing with an age, you're spanning multiple generations, right? So it means the first generation that came right after Jesus Christ, right? They did not see what we are seeing. They're gone. They didn't see what we're seeing, right? Within that age, you're going to have several generations. And then Jesus went so far as to pinpoint one specific generation out of all those generations. He pinpointed one that would see the fulfillment of prophecy. He pinpointed one. Are we that one? This is what people, this cycle is an age, right? This cycle is an age. So cycle is age and age is cycle. This is the last cycle because it's a cycle with the Messiah. No other cycle had the Messiah. Now to make to make this go even further, I've also read the text from a lot of civilizations on Earth, and not one of them during their time spoke of their time being the absolute end, not even in the time of Noah, because there was always talk about continuing after the event, right? In other civilizations also, especially Native American civilizations, right? Egyptian civilizations, all of them spoke similar things. And I have, from reading, I have an idea on things. But these guys also heard the prophets. Do you know that? The Egyptians heard the prophets. They heard of the prophets. They know what the prophets spoke of, right? Moses there were some things written after Moses also, who was not called Moses in Egypt. But they now know who Moses was in Egypt, and things were recorded of him too. And even his exploits after he left Egypt, that was recorded. But Pharaoh, after Egypt fell, after the destroyer came, after that city fell, Pharaoh went into the wilderness and he began to write. He began to document things. He was searching out the living God, right? So even he concluded that he was in the worship of very dark and false gods. So funny. Native Americans used to prepare their children for the sky serpents, they used to call them, or the winged serpents, whatever you want to call them. In every single case, though, they have the same story, that these serpent things would come from the sky, mate with a woman, they would have children. These serpent things would then come and take the child until the child was of a certain age, and then that child would come back, his eyes much brighter than everybody else's, his skin color much brighter than everybody else's, would come back and rule. And this is what some of the secret societies are based on, because they believe that the Caucasian, right, is part of the heavenly gene set, right? This is what they believe. The Caucasian is part of the heavenly gene set. Not necessarily, we're not talking about the angels, but a heavenly gene set. And they believe that there are markers or tracers. Well, they know there are. That's why they have all this DNA stuff. They're gathering up, kinfolk and seeing who's who. But in a Native American world, prior to America ever getting there, can you imagine having a blue-eyed Caucasian leader of Native Americans, right? I don't know why they don't share that in historical books. They don't share that, but that's precisely what happened. From the Mayan king list, you have gaps of time before Quetzalcoatl came there, right? 1,000 years prior to that, there was another kingdom there. Same people, different leader. The leader was Caucasian. Every single case happened that way. And so that brings us up to this very day. When the gene pool right now, just about everybody carries a very unique set, or let's just say pairs of DNA, right? Just like God said he would not come back until he scattered the power of the holy people. And he meant the power of the holy people was in their what? What is the power of the holy people? To scatter the power of the holy people, what was he talking about? Nikki says the deeper tribes called blue eyes. No, that's recent. We're talking about in the basis of it. Now, they have political arguments, and believe me, when they start talking about blue-eyed devils, this, that, and the other, all that is politics. That's politics of one tribe not liking another, bringing up every reason they can to hate him, right? Mixing historical context with some political point. They did trade and everything else, and you had the Ethiopians and the Africans and another set of Africans, and then you had the Asians, and all these races began to fight one another to compete because they were very competitive, but they just could not. Due to culture, they couldn't really trust each other because they had a variety of different beliefs, and when your faith is not the same, that brings a lot of contention to the party. And so that's relatively recent, just like most of your major scientists say that the master gene, or everybody came from one African gene. That's what they say. Um, and scientists hate to admit it, but that's the way it is. That's what they admit. Now, this is what they say. That's not necessarily what I believe. Not what I believe. I'm more in the biblical realm of things. I don't necessarily believe that. I know about some of the ancient races, and there were a group of tall, very tall, dramatic-looking people that came from the mountains and mingled in with the races. But can't you guys see it? You live in 2021, and you're telling me that most people still cannot see how the races came about. It happens every day right before your eyes. Come on, ladies, who's a good cook? You know that if you mix certain ingredients, right, the taste is going to come out different. You could cook steak the same way, but season it with different seasonings and have a totally different taste, correct? Sometimes even a different look, even a different texture, right, based upon seasoning, based upon the method. So ingredients, which are on the earth right now, you start mixing them up, you come up with very specific things. Autistic children were spoken of 4,500 years ago. How about that? Cancer was dealt with 6,000 years ago. Cancer was. The description of cancer based, and then today it was exactly, in fact, there was even talk in certain documents during the time of Noah. One of the plagues was just like cancer before the flood. Before the flood, it was at its height. Right now, the world has a plague called cancer. It's really bad. Do you guys know that? It's very bad. Very bad. Hmm? Very bad. Yeah, Eric, I do too. The book of Enoch, I do too. And they wanted to know was Enoch from the angels, because when he opened his eyes were lit up. He was light skinned, right? Egyptians, by the way, were dark skinned. They have the colored buses in there. Egyptians were not light skinned. Egyptians were dark. They were dark, very dark, like super dark, right? And then the Ethiopians look like Caucasians with black skin back during that time. That was the funny part. But they have mixed everything up so bad, right? That if anybody began to tell the truth, you cannot see it, because we've been so programmed to believe in different things. The look of a African versus a Caucasian. Would you be surprised to know that they are purposely reversed? That you learn about them, right? And they reversed how they actually look historically. And now there's no way you can tell a person the specifics of the ancient world without lying to them, telling them exactly what the books tell them. Because your context of an ancient African or an ancient Caucasian, right? They're totally different from reality. And they have totally messed people up. This is how history is actually hidden, right? And because very few people are going to go back and go against the grain and dig up the truth, then that history is just lost, and whoever can speak the best, that's who people are going to believe. You're not going to go and investigate when somebody who's well-spoken uses all the correct verbiage and nouns and pronouns and adjectives and all this stuff. When they start speaking and you believe what they're saying, there's no need for you to check. You believe the validity of that individual. To you, that person has credentials. So why go check that person out, right? They call it vetting people, which is a joke. How do you vet a person anyway? What are you going to go find out? That's just weird. I'm going to vet this person. Somebody said that to me once. We have to vet you. I said, well, I'll tell you what. You go find the worst person in the world, and there's my history. Let's go forward. Like John the Baptist, he said, what did you come out here to see? What did you come out here to see? Hmm? Folks, a serious question. If history is purposely turned around backward in a lot of aspects, right? Can you see how the historical context of how we go forward can be lost. And what does that do for real? That puts people in charge who may know the real history, who make weird moves, but in fact, those weird moves are historically correct, because most of these guys believe in this, that whatever happened before is going to happen again. They believe in this. So if you were in power and reversed history, and you had people believing in a history that wasn't quite accurate, they could not navigate the future. They couldn't. And because you know this, what you could do is navigate it for them. And when your outcome was different than theirs, they would entrust you with leadership and you could control them. All because you reversed elements of history. That's precisely what has happened today. In the Bible, it says there's nothing new under the sun. Here's the problem. If you're taught a lie about where you came from, how do you know where you're going? You will repeat things that are hard coded into you genetically, right? Unless you have such discipline that you would obey the spirit above the flesh in all degrees. But if you don't know that, you're going to start doing things you won't understand why. Most people right now today, they don't understand how their life turned out the way it is. They'll say, well, I don't know how I got here. I don't know what possessed me to do this and do that. The truth is, if you knew all the people that were behind you and what they did, you would see your natural instincts in everything you do today. Now, all your instincts can be overrode by your spirit. You know that, don't you? When you have the spirit, your flesh no longer matters. It doesn't matter what your flesh was. It matters what your spirit is, because the spirit can override the flesh. But if you don't have the spirit, if you don't operate by the spirit, you're left to the devices of the flesh. You're not going to know where you're going. And you can easily be put in somebody's control when they start leading you into places that you can never lead yourself into. You're going to entrust them with leadership. That's what's happening right now. That's what's catching the world right now. Right now. Lordy, Lordy. Michael, I'm back in Indian Caucasian, but I'm questioning about what is true. Can you go deeper? Well, Robin, look, if you're questioning about I'm also questioning about what am I, right? I'm like a box of chocolates. So a lot of us are questioned, right? But you have to make sure you know something. I say this from the heart. Make sure you know who you are in your Father, not in your flesh. You know, I had to get bold one day because somebody asked me, they said, well, you know, your grandfather, so and so, and this, that, we know this, and we know this, and we know that about you, and this, and they assume the traits of your ancestors or whatever in you, right? But one day I broke down in boldness, and it was probably the hardest thing I could have ever said. You want to know what it was? When I was being evaluated in my past, who your dad is and who your grandfather is, all that is relevant when you're being, when you're put in the hot seat, so to speak. When you're about to go forward with organizations, they look at your family tree. And I had to tell them one time, I said, my father's Jehovah, the living God. And I have a born again spirit, which nullifies the instincts of flesh. Well, needless to say, after I said that, that was a day I really didn't have a future. But I had to break down and say it was one of the hardest things I said. In other words, I don't go forward based on flesh and based on my ancestors and based on what they did. I'm guided by a new set of principles that are bound in Christ Jesus. And it's for the Lord. That's how I go forward. No longer by flesh, not ruled by instincts. But see, that was one of the hardest things I could do, because I was consciously breaking all the strength you can gather from your family members, and you may have a family member with this type strength and that type strength. I said, no more for that. No more of that. No more of that. Because if you're given a born again spirit and you're to die to your flesh daily, how can you go forward through any strength of flesh given by what was passed down to you? If you have a born again spirit, then you have a born again spirit. And if we're to die to the flesh, then we're not living our lives by what was passed down to us, but by a brand new set of principles and desires. Living life with a brand new set of eyes, right? Because you're not walking by flesh anymore. So you don't draw upon those instinctual things by your parents, by your grandparents, by the greatness of this person or that person. You don't do that anymore. But I'll tell you something, it's hard to do. You'd be surprised how many people believe, but they have not broken ties with that. They won't do it. They won't do it because they can't see any other way to go forward. It's a hard thing to do because you're stepping on the water. You're not stepping on solid ground, something that you're used to, something you know you can navigate. Nope. You're stepping on water, and the problem with stepping on water is you don't know if it's 1 inch deep or 1 mile deep. It's the unknown. To walk on the water is to begin to live your life in the unknown. No comforts to your left, no comforts to your right. One of the significance of Peter walking on the water was he walked in the unknown because of Christ only for a little while. But listen, then when he realized he could not catch himself on the left or the right or the back, he began to sink. He began to sink out of what? Out of what? He had no comforts. When you walk on water, there are no comforts. There is no plan B. And where was Christ? He was standing on the water. To get to Christ, Peter had to walk on the water at first, didn't he? But then Jesus said, I'll do you one better. You thought you had to walk on the water to come and meet me. Wrong. I'm coming to you. I'll alleviate the task of you having to walk on any water. You don't even have to leave your comfort zone. Just let me in. Just hear me. That's why he stands at the door and he knocks. Isn't that awesome? He came to your place of comfort to knock at your door. He did that. You didn't go out on the water to go meet him. He came to your door, your place of comfort, your place of security. He came where you are to knock. That takes away. That just alleviates a large path that hardly any of us would have probably succeeded in. But he came to meet us, and he did so for a reason. He's not asking us to walk on water. Did you notice? He's not asking us to do the impossible either. Did you notice? What's the one thing Jesus said? We'll take a break. What's the one thing he said? The one thing he did ask us to do. Does anybody know the consistent thing he asked us to do? And I tell you, most of the questions we have so far are summed up in this. There's one thing he asked us to do. Anybody know what that is? He said, believe in me. Believe in me. That's it. He did not say, go walk 1,000 miles in this direction or that direction. No, he said, believe in me. Just believe in me. Now, let me ask you something. Let me ask everybody something before we go to break. And then we'll start the broadcast. We didn't start the broadcast yet, guys. It's only, we're going to start it when I come back. But he said, believe in me. Let me ask you this, though. I'm going to challenge it when I get back. How many people actually believe in Christ? How many actually believe in Christ? And if you will allow me, can we all challenge that tonight? Can we all challenge that tonight to refine that one question? Can we do that? Can we challenge that? Can we do that? We'll still answer questions, yes, but can we challenge that one? Can we believe in him? Do we believe in him? Because I'll tell you something. I said that one time, and when I thought about it, something else. Right? That means there's some checks and balances in our process of thinking that may not align with the Lord. And you know what? All these things are relevant because the assault that's coming, the pressure will come first by mankind. The spiritual aspect to what's coming is not measurable. I'm amazed sometimes because I see people, they go out here, they believe in ghosts and goblins and ET, they believe in fairies and all this other stuff, but they will not believe in the resolve of Jesus Christ. They will not believe in the sovereignty of the living God. They refuse, but they'll believe in every component of existence.
Leprechauns, even.
And the king of creation. That is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. Mind-boggling. But that's precisely where the world is. And if you're not careful, that's a very slippery slope. We're not talking about, we're not talking about the grammar thing here. Slippery slopes and all those things. No metaphors, right? But if we're not careful, we can be caught in a trap of thinking or going through the process and exercising ways like we believe in him without ever believing in him. That can happen. Let me put you to the test. Here it is. You ready? If you ever feared a situation, no matter what it was, if you ever feared a situation, in that moment, you did not believe in him for what he is. Think about it. Somebody says, what do the 10 kings do for 1 hour when they receive power with the beast? 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet, but will 1 hour with the beast, they'll give their kingdom to the beast. For God has put it into their hearts. He put it into their hearts to fulfill his will and to give their kingdom to the beast. So these 10 kings who have received no power as of yet are unseen. Nobody sees them. They receive power with the beast 1 hour, right? Now that's not our hour, right? But they receive power as kings. They give that power over to the beast. But why? It's because God the Father put it in their hearts. God the Father put a desire in the hearts of the 10 kings to give their kingdom over to the beast. I'll say that one more time. God the Father put it in their hearts to give their kingdom over to the beast 1 hour. Why? So that the scriptures will be fulfilled. Those will be the days of vengeance. God put it in their hearts to give their kingdom over to the beast 1 hour to fulfill his will. His indignation will not turn away. And those 10 kings that grant their power over to the one then you'll see your coalition. By all the rights of man, they will trample the one that rides atop the dragon. Does not want to ride atop the dragon. And the dragon hates the one that rides atop her. And he will trample her underfoot 42 months. You know who that is?
Israel.
That's why he put it in the hearts of the 10 kings to give their power over to the beast to accomplish the will of God. Good question, requires context, because I'm sure that a lot of people don't understand that. But we'll all know it perfectly. Question, Mike. Any comment on purple street lights that are popping up in different states? Blessing. Well, those are LED lights. So what is this Mystery Babylon? Well, Mystery Babylon was written on the forehead of the one who rides atop the beast. It was only written in the forehead. Mystery Babylon, the great mother of harlots. You can pause right there, right, T. This is why, if she's a mother of harlots, she's the first harlot, and all the rest are daughters. If she's the mother of harlots, then God's naming her as the very first one that committed adultery. And if she committed adultery, she belonged to somebody. So who was it? Who was the very first nation
Israel.
God would say committed adultery? The only ones. And if he called her a harlot, if he called her a harlot, the great mother of harlots, he's saying the first harlot. She's the first. There was only one nation who ever belonged to someone and committed fornication on every side, under every green tree.
Israel.
There's only one nation the beast hates. It's almost like when you're reading those passages, earthly wisdom gets in the way and causes a person to forget. The beast hates the whore, it says. The beast hates the whore. He hates the woman that sits atop him. He hates it, and he will kill her and burn her with fire. This is what the beast will do. So the beast is going to burn up this woman. And this woman is Mystery Babylon, the great mother of harlots. Not a known, not an obvious Babylon, but a mystery Babylon, great mother of harlots. That was written on her forehead. That in the Old Testament, it also signifies a very special thing, because only a harlot had a stamp on her forehead of what she was. Harlots did that. They wore a jewel in the forehead, and it signified they had the piercings and 2 tattoos, and it signified a harlot. Now, they don't know that in this day. Everybody's got tattoos and piercings. But that signified a harlot and the nature of that harlot. In this case, God said, mother of harlots. She rides atop the beast, but the beast hates her. The beast does not love her. The beast hates her. So she's not a part of the beast. She is not a part of the beast. And the only reason she's the great mother of harlots and she's Mystery Babylon, or a hidden Babylon. When something is hidden, where is it? It's inside you. Not on the outside. It's not obvious where you can see it. It's on the inside. And if it's on the inside, it's part of it.
We are Israelites on the inside, not on the outside. There goes your answer again.
There's only one nation who fits that category. Only one. America would be obvious Babylon, right? Now, if the Bible said obvious Babylon the Great, it'd be different. We could say, oh, yep, America, right? No, he said mystery Babylon. So think of a place that you would never affiliate with Babylon, that you just never do it. But in the
See, that's where so many teachers get it wrong. They think America's mystery Babylon. No, it's not.
Revelation, you're dealing with mystery Babylon, but you have a real Babylon in there too.
Israel.
The beast hates this woman. The beast hates her. The beast does not love her. The beast hates her. So if the beast hates her, the beast, the head of that beast being the old serpent called the devil and Satan, then Satan hates her and also pursued her. It's got to be somebody Satan hates. And the Bible gives...
Why do you think Satan pursues us? Hardcore. Today I've been going through much testing.
To the child. He was wroth with the woman. He even pursues the remnant of the seed of that woman because he hates that woman. The dragon went after the woman, cast a flood out of his mouth, but the earth helped her. The earth opened up and swallowed the flood. Will these 10 kings be from monarch country? So as to where they're now, these are, think of it, these are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet, but will 1 hour with the beast. If there are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet, this is a named time and a named place for these individuals. When they get up to a certain point in time, they're not going to be elected or granted anything but 1 hour with the beast, right? Everything changes. They almost rule by default. Then God puts it in their hearts to give their power over to the beast. If the beast is running around getting rid of leadership, which is what will likely happen, then by default, other people are going to be leaders of those nations.
Biden and Canada's prime minister stole it by default. They didn't steal it. God allowed them to steal it. But you can see.
They have given their sovereignty over to me. We're going to make a bigger nation, and here we are, and I'm the king of it. Because if they've received no kingdom as of yet, but will have power 1 hour with the beast and give their power over to the beast, then we know that the beast is going to become the head of those nations. Thus, the beast will be complete. See how that works? They have received no power as of yet, but will 1 hour with the beast. 1 hour with the beast. So they give their power over to the beast. And that beast they give their power over to, right? Constitutes the totality of it. I think that beast is most appropriate. The beast is. I think it's most appropriate. Beast or false prophet is most appropriate. I say that because of what Christ said. That many antichrists have gone out already. Right? So there are many.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying the Pope is the false prophet. No, he's not. The Antichrist is.
The movies and all the movies and the books and stuff and all these points of view. Be careful with that stuff, guys. Because that can cloud your mind and start mixing things together. I'll be back in a minute right here at COT, guys. We'll get started in just a few moments. Guys, I've been in a bubble.
Okay, he's on break. I'm cooking supper. Do you see where the people are getting the teachings right or wrong? Sorry, I said that backwards. They're teaching these false teachers. They don't know it. You know why? Because they're not working by the Spirit of God or Jesus, the Spirit. They're not working by that. They're working by what they believe, and they're trying to teach everybody else what they believe. False prophets, anybody preaching the Bureau and Planet X, those are false prophets, man. They haven't been given the real truth by God because they haven't lived on both sides. To teach the Bible like I've been teaching, you have to know both sides of the story. There's two sides to the story. The problem is these people haven't lived on the dark side to even be able to teach the Bible. They are like the females in old days. They should be shut up in the pulpit. Oh, I'm selling a coin. Here's a coin with an engraved image. They're they're giving away Satan stuff. Zachariah Sitchin called it Planet X. These guys are giving it away. These guys, man, you should know them by now. It's coming to the time where we have to know these false prophets. Man, I can go into a room, and as soon as they yell out rapture, I'm gone. You know, that's such a false teaching. They can yell out these false teachings, and people, oh, I want to be raptured. I'll be a lazy Christian, and Jesus will do it all. No, he won't. By the measure given is what's given back to you. I have a teaching on the measure given. They don't even understand it because they don't have oils. Their lamps aren't burning, they're out. So it's because they're teaching man's garbage. Planet X Nibiru. That's garbage. That's not in the Bible, man. I can tell you that. I've read the Bible twice and listened to it 30 times. It's not in there. It actually only speaks of planets once in the Bible. And they will err to these things. Because what does God call a star? By name. Why is he going to call a star that's junk floating around in space a name? He doesn't use things in vain. Man, these false teachers, this is why I'm so against them. I don't care if the people come to my room or not. I just care they get out of this false teaching because Peter says the number two thing to make people fall is false doctrine because Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice and a stranger he won't follow. So why are you following people selling coins? Oh, I got the best information. Come over here and buy this conference and 200,000 people buy it, and the guy becomes rich, and they know less than the guy under the bus, like me or Mike. It's it's a time where you should be able to discern false prophets. Is rapture? Does it say rapture in the Bible? No, it doesn't. You can't use replacement theory. They use it, and they say other people are using. Get out of here. You know? It's so easy to see a false prophet when you are hearing from the word of the Lord. I just don't get it. I'm cooking too, guys, so just ignore me. Ignore the crackling and the cooking. I'm making sausage gumbo. It's really good. Anyways, but that's not what we're here to talk about. It's disgusting, the false prophets. They're here. There's many false Christs going out. I got Jesus' way. You know how I know? Because they'll block my stuff and they'll kick me out of their churches. There's ones on there on YouTube, a guy with glasses screaming all the time and selling his stuff all the time. And that's false prophet, man. Preaching rapture and the abomination that makes it desolate. Well, that is the Antichrist that goes into Israel. But there's many of them, people that don't have Christ, are an abomination, and they're desolate. They're naked. That's what that means. And he's not going to step into a church. He's going to step into the city. And they're going to make a false mockery place of worship and say it's of God. But God didn't build it. A man built it. If God built it, Satan can't go where God is. Darkness has no affiliation with light. Turn a light on in the dark room. Who wins? The light. So this is an eternal light, a light that doesn't go out, a light that doesn't stop shining. How can darkness win? It's already lost, and so are the people. 70% of the Christians are lost in this false, fake doctrine that God has me here to reprove them. You know, they don't even know what it's like to face Satan. I face him daily, every day. Because you know why? Satan seeks to kill Israelites. The harlot, I do believe it was Rahab, Abraham's wife, that slept with someone else and mixed the DNA, okay? She was an Israelite. Oh my God. There is Mystery Babylon is America. I even know people with great teachings that teach that. No, that's not right. It's not a mystery because we're in the time it's being revealed. Wow, was I thirsty. Just so funny. So funny. These people. They run to these PBs, these Joel Osteens, these Joyce Myers. Joyce Myers, the falsest prophet on the face of the earth. No women should be teaching in the pulpit, let alone a millionaire.
Near the Gulf. That's what I'm thinking, near the Gulf. So we have an inbound that's going to hit right there near the Gulf. Hopefully it does not hit in the Gulf, but it looks like it will go right in the Gulf, somewhere in that proximity. That will be Thursday through Friday. There's no way I can narrow that time down unless I, start tracking it real time. Somebody had a question here, and it was but I want to make a statement. I want to find something for you guys before you guys get into some thorough questioning here, because I believe the word, and I think the method of the word is very sound. The methods that were given to us.
We're going to get hit with a meteorite. So you see, Satan is after God's children. He won't leave me alone. So I have a fight. I have the tribulation oils. These people that don't have the fight, they're not being chased by Satan because they are of Satan.
Only those.
Why would Satan pay for? It's like saying, here's your house. You already bought it. Now pay for it again. Why would Satan pay for a house again? He already owns false prophets. The Pharisees and Sadducees, be aware of the leaven of their bread because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. All I can smell is stinky yeast.
He said that was useless. Remember that? And the Bible also talks about being spoiled through vain philosophies and rudiments of men, right? But when he spoke about the genealogies, people discussing genealogies, so
I can't either. I can't wear gold. I can't wear anything but gold in my ears. It goes. Let's let Mike talk here. I'm cooking, so I'll answer that. I don't know what it is, man. Maybe. Hold on. Let's let Mike talk for a while. I gotta ask. I don't know.
a lot of details in a lot of areas. They can barely feed themselves, nor they don't know how to go out and extract food from nature. Useless. It does not edify the body. Right? That's what the Lord was getting to. There are certain subjects that just don't edify the body. It's not going to do that person who's battling with dark entities. Any good to know the details about the toenails of Moses, right? So some of the subjects that people get into, I won't get into because it becomes useless. It's useless. Now to have that overall picture, right? That would affect us. That's a different story. And with that, you have to have spiritual discernment or spiritual understanding. Also, note in the Bible, it states that the Bible must be understood spiritually. It must be discerned spiritually. Now, discerned is when it almost has the word solve included into it. So it really is understanding it, but being able to apply it also, which turns into wisdom. You start going into detail. You're going to find yourself in conversations that just take up time. If they don't grant anybody anything, right? No breakthrough, no anything. You just, the Bible states the end result of those things is forever learning and never coming to the knowledge of the truth. Having a bunch of details and specifications, right? But you cannot apply it, nor can you identify it when it comes along. The world works that way, right? The world will pay you to study a light bulb from a mile away to see if it causes headaches. But they'll pay you for this. They've actually sent out a grant for $350,000 to find the answer to that question. Can a light bulb affect a person a mile away, inducing headaches upon a person if that light bulb was on 24 hours a day? They actually had a study on dumb things like this, and they paid big grants. This is how they pay for science. You guys know that, right? That's how they pay.
Did I hit it? Body's made of gold, silver, everything on this earth. I believe if you have too much of it in you, that it's too much. It's an overload. It's something like taking a vitamin. When you got too much of it, it comes out in the bones. Like I can't take calcium because I have too much of it, and it comes out in my cells, and I got lumps in my back from it. So I do believe if you have too much of these properties in you, it's got nowhere to go. So that's why you're tasting it. The Lord just gave me that. So I don't know. That's what I figured, because we're made out of everything on the earth and everything in the heavens. So if you've got too much of it in you, silver's in us, man. Silver's in us. So is copper. So is zinc. All metals are in us, right? We're made out of that stuff. So if you got too much of it, it needs to disperse it. It starts dispersing it out our mouth. We start tasting it, and even some people that take silver start turning silver, right? So it starts coming out of their skin, out of their protrusions, like your mouth. That's what I believe. I don't know. You take it the way any way you want, but that's what the Lord kind of gave me.
I've seen this happen multiple times. And somebody said, leave your homes and go south, right? What's the first thing you would grab? Anybody? Would you have a hard time figuring out if they said you can only take, 2.5 pounds with you? How many of you it would take you more than 10 seconds to find out what you're going to take? How many? Most people would pause for a minute. Some people would go into a frenzy not knowing what to take. A lot of people would attempt to smuggle things with them, wouldn't they? They would attempt to smuggle. Now, hear this one. If your heart, if nothing in your home is a treasure, right? In other words, you have no self-investment in it by way of your heart. You can walk away from everything. You can leave it. If you have an attachment to anything in your house, it's your treasure, right? For example, your car. People, they polish their cars, and if someone touches that car, you get people that will be upset. right? They'll get upset. If somebody stumbles into it, falls into it, what if an old guy, what if you had a brand new car, you just had it Simonized, and some guy walks up to it and he falls into your car and puts a dent in your door, and you just bought the car, it's not even 36 hours old. How many people would be upset? How many?
That happened to my brand new car. First day I had it, someone opened the door on it. I was like, oh, someone bruised my car, and I moved on. Then I sold it for a beater because I don't believe we're going to be here long enough. My beater will last me.
Of their family members. I've seen people react with specific sets of jewelry. I've seen people react with those things they deem as precious that are material possessions in their homes, and they contain memories. I've seen how people react. And the truth is, a lot of people would have you thrown off of a plane so they can take a picture with their family in a heartbeat. They do it. They would have you ejected from a flight. Try to convince you, why don't you wait for the next flight so I can take this picture? It means a lot to me. People would do that. Personally, I would never do that. Nothing is going to go before. For the next flight so I can take this picture, it means a lot to me. People would do that. Personally, I would never do that. What the Lord finds precious, which is humanity. See, I found some great flaws in my life over the years. You know what the number one flaw was? I actually had a few things that came before humanity, and that's a no-no. Not a car, not an animal, nothing ought to go before another human being. Nothing. There are people out there right now, they would see a person starve and be content, but they could not see a dog starve and be content. So they'll put that dog before another human being. I've seen people put items before humanity. People certainly murder over items. They will kill you to take a possession or have something. When your heart is connected to something, normally it's because you have a vested interest in that thing. And if that's the case, you're going to find yourself protecting, babysitting this thing. So your heart is there. And the Lord is saying that if your treasures are in your house, that's where your heart is, right? Your treasure is what you're going to protect. Your treasure is what you're going to fight for. I hear a lot of people saying, well, if something happens in the world, I'm going to get my guns, and anybody comes close to my home, I'm going to take them out. And then you ask them, do you have children? No. You got a wife, girlfriend? No, it's just me. But it's my house, and nobody's going to touch it. And if they touch my can of beans, I'm going to kill them. Well, see, that's a person whose heart and soul is in the wrong place. I've heard other people say, well, what do I do if somebody comes up to my house? I said, well, what if they're just hungry and they just want something to eat? You're going to shoot them? Because a lot of people were saying back in that day, which is why the Lord did not allow it to happen. They were saying, this is 2012. If they come in my neighborhood, I'm going to shoot them. I'm not going to ask questions. It'll be dangerous. I have to protect everything I have. And see, that was a problem. That was a problem. I even had a discussion back there. I said, the Lord's not coming back now because it would condemn too many people. Too many people have their hearts on material things. And they don't even know that the number one call in the end days is to forsake earthly goods and save the soul. They don't even know that. You guys do know that the majority of this war is materialistic. That people are working themselves to the bone to obtain material things. You know that, don't you? They're not working themselves to the bone so they can.
I have my family working themselves to bone buying motorbikes, RVs, uh, SUVs, all these things they're buying. They're working themselves to the bone for it, man. I work myself to the bone for the Lord because I can't take that junk. I have $11,000 motorbike. I rid it 3 times for like an hour each time.
What I was doing. That will never happen again. Because have you ever met a person who they like everything lined up in a specific way, right? Everything has to be lined up, dress right, dress, and things have to just look.
The same person that has everything does that. So yeah, I know them. They're the same people that have everything.
was. And they would laugh. They would take a cup and scoot it maybe 2 degrees to the right or to the left, and I would be able to tell because I had a visual inventory of everything I had. And then that's when I gave it all up and gave it all away. And I did that twice, and I shared that with you guys. The first time was the strongest unction I've ever had in my life, and all of it had to go. The second time I did it freely because it began to compete with my own thoughts and care for others. And I said, well, it's going again. And so now I live my life where I'm not attached to anything material. If nothing I have, right, I'm willing to give away everything I have. Let's put it that way. And I'll never have anything that will not serve another. I'm not going to have anything that just looks nice. I can't do that. I can't do that. So if the Lord doesn't have you live that way, then don't live that way. You have to be obedient to what the Lord has you in. I'm being obedient to what the Lord has me in. See, we all have weaknesses. All of us do. All of us have strengths and all of us have weaknesses. Now we have common weaknesses, but we also have very different weaknesses. And in my case, right, I know some of the inbred habits of this flesh. And it's not going to compete with humanity. Therefore, I'll never have anything I'm not willing to give away. And I don't give away the things that fall apart either. No, the Lord taught me different about that too. Why would I give away what I'm willing to throw in the garbage can? So instead of getting the item in the closet that the sleeve is about to fall off, I get the brand new thing. That's what I give away. I keep the torn up stuff and give away the good stuff. It's totally backward, worldly.
Yeah, I did that too. I had a brand new vehicle. I gave it away for a piece of junk. I sold it for next to nothing. It was worth $14,000 as it sat. I gave it away for 8.5. That's pretty much nothing. And then I bought a truck and I had to put a couple grand into it and some money into my wife's car. My wife's like, "Why didn't you get rid of the older car that she has? It runs great." I just didn't. The Lord has me parting with the things on this earth. There's nothing on this earth that I want to really keep. My treasure's not here.
Things. And material things is their comfort, right? See, in my life, so long as I have placement with my Father in heaven, I'm good to go. But you see, I have a lot of people, they're not going to be comfortable until they have tangible things they can touch. I can sit in an empty place with no promise of anything. So long as I can pray, I'm good to go. So long as I can do something for the Lord by serving my fellow man, I'm good. I don't need material things, and I've been tested on that. So don't go boasting about that you're the same way. Don't do that because you could lose everything. The Lord will qualify every word you speak out of your mouth. You belong to Him now. You've been bought with a price. You're of the kingdom. So you're just not some average person. Be careful how you speak. You're going to be qualified for everything you do speak. But I've been
I have twice. Twice.
agreed upon by me. It was not easy because the next day when I gave everything away, do you know what happened the next day? The next day, I was sitting there thinking, like, did I make a mistake? That's exactly what I thought. I said, oh, no. So I had to be broken of that. And I will not allow that stuff to seep back into my life. I won't do it. Won't do it. So I had to be careful where my treasure is, right? Be very careful what my treasure is. Because where your treasure is, there your heart is also. It's just like home. Home is not actually this nice place you think it is. Home to a lot of children is where the parent they love exists. That's what home is. So parents, you make the home. The home doesn't make you. You make the home. Hmm? You can take a nice place and you can think that's home for you, but for your children, that could be hell itself. I can assure you, if you let love flow through you to those members of the household, a motel room can be home. Home is going to be where you are. Your heart, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. And the reason why is because if we have a treasure here on earth, we have labored for it. We prize it, right? It's our prize. It's one of our highest possessions. And so we're going to constantly take inventory over it, keep it clean, do whatever we have to do. But that connection with heart poses a problem. And the Lord is saying, don't store up treasure here on earth. He says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He says, sell that ye have and give alms. Provide yourselves bag which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. That means don't let your heart be attached to those things you can touch with your physical hands, right? Tangible things here on earth where anybody can get to it. But let your treasure be those things that Jesus says is his treasure. Wisdom, the principles of Christ, right? The laws of our Father in heaven. That should be a big treasure for each and every one of us to walk the rest of our days with a desire to be obedient. That is to say, a desire to walk upright, to not let the flesh win. But when you find yourself short-handed by way of the flesh, stand right back up and walk again. Don't give in to it. Don't sulk. Don't say, oh, I messed up. Oh, and start crying. Don't do that. No, you defeat the flesh by rising. You just simply rise up and you go forward and you say, not this time. Not this time. Because for every time you fall, if you examine your own fall, you'll see what made you fall. Jesus is the one that's able to keep us falling. You know that? That's written. So you don't have to fall the same way every single time. When you fall, you can defeat. You defeat.
How do you learn to get up if you don't fall? Doesn't happen. I've been teaching all this stuff in the last week, man, which is crazy.
Satan will make you walk in circles. And our own stubbornness can have us put in the wilderness, which is to walk in circles, to have repeated episodes in your life over and over again because you choose not to change the pattern. There are going to be a lot of people, and I've seen it in storms. You know, certain people can't leave their homes in storms because they want to protect everything. The truth is going to be found out of all of us. Normally, in a catastrophe, that's when it's found out. When a person has to walk away from everything, I mean everything, that's when you find out who that person is. Before that time, you scarcely know who they are. One day we'll all know. And the Lord has already made that clear. All secrets, all hidden things are going to be freely shown in this lifetime before he comes back. And it's not that somebody else is going to find it. Things will happen on this earth. Honesty will come out of us big time. Even the people in Revelation were honest. Though they were condemned, though they stood against the living God, they no longer hid it. They were becoming honest. And how many of you in your own minds, you don't have to answer this, but in your own life, most Christians begin almost like a mammal in the wild, like a small mammal. They hide themselves. They're trying to survive. And so they hide a lot. As time goes on, even right now, you're less and less concerned about hiding anything. More and more people are saying, here I am, take it or leave it. This is who I am. That's what they're saying. And all these hidden ways people have in their lives are saying, well, it's not hidden anymore. Here it is. Take it or leave it. That's what goes with the package. A further change in society, in the world, is going to bring out the rest. And don't forget about the hacks. You guys remember I told you that a program was out there. You ready? Everything, for example, If it was in my computer, it would have access to every single discussion I ever had. If your name is in my computer, this program is going to let you know in what context your name was in this computer. By phone conversation, text messages, emails, by any correspondence. It's going to let the individual, the target, know. It's called the target. It's going to let the target know. Everybody who had something to say about them. The way computers work, they just have a natural knack to pull out the negative things. That means on Facebook, when you have these conversations about somebody else, this program, this virus, this application is going to take all that conversation and send it to the individual. And they're going to let the individual that you were talking about to somebody else know about that conversation. That's going to actually happen. It's going to spread. It's sleeping right now on many machines. I think present count is well over 1 million machines it has already embedded itself in. So any conversation is just, it's going to go back to the individual. Now, when that happens, that's really going to put your Christianity to the test, specifically forgiveness. That's when you're really going to know who's following the principles of Christ. Because if there's one statement with Christ that's going to give us a splinter, it is love your enemies. Do good to those who despitefully use you and persecute you for his name's sake. Rejoice and be glad. Now, if they're spitefully using your name in a negative way, then they're purposely doing it. Not accidentally, but purposely. If you found this out,
Yeah, it's happening to me. The Lord's already putting me through that ahead of time because I'm getting attacked from family and friends like that. But I'm forgiving them.
if I found out Heather and 37 and Pooh Bear and Nikki and everybody, not today. If they talked trash about me yesterday, this is today, not yesterday. See, I happen to occupy a place called forgiveness. I do. There's not going to come a time when I will not forgive. There's no way I can ever say I love Christ, and yet I can't forgive somebody of something. That would be foolishness on my part, very dangerous. No, I occupy forgiveness. See, I know something. Maybe you don't. No one stays the same. No one. Everybody changes. Everybody changes their point of view. Everybody changes. And I'll hold nothing against no one. Not ever. I'm not here for everybody to like me. No. I'm purposed to be here for the sake of the kingdom. And you are too. I'm here to serve my fellow man, not to take from him.
So people that say I just want my life back, what they're showing all over the place with these shots, they're taking the shots so they can, and I'm not going against them, so they can have their life back. They've made a bad decision.
Then who am I? Not to relinquish.
They think their life is their own. So when they go to stand in front of Jesus, I never knew you.
See how that works? Occupying that place where you esteem everybody higher than yourselves. It puts you in a state of freedom. You'll never find it anywhere else. Let the Lord position you. But as far as you go, never position yourself over your fellow man. It's just like one of the leadership rules is this. Never position yourself where you can take from those you command. Never do that. Never put yourself in a position where you will take from those you command. Never do that. You assume that in the leadership role. And they got that from Joshua. They got that from the Old Testament. Okay, folks. Questions? It's 9:17. Since I haven't been here in a while, I need some questions. You guys have asked no questions. What if it's a reptilian that is hurting you? Should you do good to them as well? Interesting question, isn't it? You ready? You ready? If a demon was hurting me, I need to go to the Father and ask the Father, what have I done that this demon can penetrate the blood of the Lamb? Because here's the truth. You ready for this truth? Nothing has a right to lay its hands on you unless you give it permission. And the real question is, where are we when stuff like that happens? Because let's face it, this is a truth of truths here, folks. I want you to look back into your lives and look at how many things you chose that should have killed you. I mean, we chose it, and it really should have killed us. We didn't ask permission. We didn't ask guidance with it or anything else. We saw, we lusted, we desired, we pictured and envisioned and had all these beautiful visions of something. Then when it bit us, we said, oh, it's a snake, right? But the truth is, we chose the snake in the beginning, knowing it was a snake. Didn't ask anybody's permission, didn't want anybody's permission. We were grown-ups, right? We didn't want anybody's input on this. This was our decision. We can do what we want. So we ran out there and bought a snake and tried to tell ourselves, I can change it, didn't we? Then one day it goes, it bites you. And when it bites you, it reminds you it's a snake. So I'll say this. When you put yourself in a position, when we choose a position based off lust, it normally does not end up good. But listen, the Lord always provides a way of escape out of sin. Hear me on this. That means if you're in a sinful situation, all you have to do is ask the Lord, and He will guide you in a way out. He will always make a way of escape out of sin. But you have to be serious about it. Serious. Reptilians have no power and authority over anybody who belongs to Jesus of Nazareth. A demon has no authority over anybody who belongs to Jesus of Nazareth. Because you're bought with a price. How in the world can we be bought with a price, yet can still be harmed by something from the darkness? The Lord said we have power to tread upon scorpions and serpents, and nothing will by any means hurt us. And He's given us power over all the enemy. So that means it's not something wrong with the Bible. It's not something wrong with what Jesus said. It's not that He's not fulfilling something. It's that we have chosen things that were poisonous. It looked good to us. It looked wholesome. It looked like it could yield quite a bit. And we went out and got it. Here's another fact. Normally when this happens, what you go out to get will resist you. But you pursue it and end up with it anyway. It's still going to bite you. Right? So you have all these warning signs that we just ignore. And we go and get it and bind ourselves to it anyway. And then kapoof. It hurts. But the Lord made a promise. When you're bought with a price, when you belong to Him, no matter what state you're in, He'll make a way of escape out of sin. Out of any sinful situation, anything born of sin, anything, He'll make a way of escape. That means if you got married to an individual and you were not saved and that person was not saved, but then you grew and one outgrew the other, right? If you still love each other in truth, and one is saved and one is not, but you still love each other, do you not know that the Lord can change hearts? Oh, yes, He can. Now, He won't change a heart to love you more. No. He will turn that stony heart, that resistant heart, to a heart of flesh, a heart that will receive the truth. And from there, that person can grow too. So He can turn the situation around. He's not going to sit there and make people love you even more. He's not going to do that. But He will turn a situation around. In fact, He loves to turn situations around. He loves that. Right? He loves, he did it all throughout the Word of God. He loves it. But it takes, if you really love a person, then don't run away. If you really love a person, I didn't say fear, you're fearful, right? I didn't say, stay with a person because it's convenient. Most people will stay with, for example, an abusive person. Most people stay with abusive people because they have nowhere else to go. They have nowhere else to go. Well, see, they're still making a choice based off what they see. They think that freedom will come at such cost. They don't make a decision at all, and they stay in that abusive relationship. That's not the way either. That's not the way. When you ask of the Lord, then prepare yourself to get the answer, especially if you realize you're caught in a sinful situation, right? But heed my advice. If you get upset with somebody, don't play with Christ, right? When you love a person, stick everything out, fight for that person. But when you come to the point where you can't say anything to the person, don't badger the person, don't do any of those things. Do self-examination and pray at the same time, knowing that the first change must be you. Must be you. There are certain people that will cover another. If you have a believer and a non-believer, and that believer loves the non-believer, do you not know that that believer becomes a covering for the non-believer? You know that? That's what happens. Okay, Chris, Super Chris has a question. I say, for Mike. Hey, Mike, what are your thoughts on Canary Islands? Possibly it's nominal to the U.S., Europe, Italy. What about the large volcano in Italy? Thank you. I think those things are highly volatile. I think that the Pacific right now and the Atlantic Ocean, they're volatile, extremely volatile. I also believe that the Lord is sending us these signals once again, and I hope we pay attention to it, because all too often humanity misses the signals. For example, this blood moon, right? The blood moon that just kind of faded is going to fade out of everybody's memory. You know what? I went back and looked up all the blood moons, the corresponding actions, even some of the dates, the day intervals are surprising. The Lord will always warn us, and based upon certain signs that he sets up the celestial heavens for, so is the magnitude of the happening on the earth, because we are volatile. I know we're going to be dealing with a volcanic ash type atmosphere and environment soon enough. In other words, hear me out, Chris. We have a potential issue in America right now. Just America. 125 active volcanoes. 161 are soon to be active. Out of that number, we're going to have about 60 to 70 surprises within the next 6 months in the USA. And we're by no means ready for that. We're not. See, the populace is not going to counteract anything until they see proof. Unfortunately, with a volcano, when you see proof, it's too late. Too late. It's going to be too late. If I were you,
The floods in BC. Oh, HARP's doing it. No, HARP is not doing it. Quit taking God's glory. Science and HARP. God do these signs for people to see and wake up. Destruction. Now Vancouver's going to get it again. They're having it again.
I should have said it earlier, because it takes about 10 years to prepare for something like that. But when an event begins to happen, then they're going to be in trouble on the East Coast. In the West Coast, the Lord has me gauging the West Coast by something that's not affiliated with the West Coast. But later on, I found out is in fact the key to it. And so it's already going in high gear, which makes me nervous. Those places are highly volatile. And with the coming impacts hitting the waters and hitting land masses in several areas, that's just going to make it worse. And we're going to have to get used to those type conditions, because once it begins, it's going to be back-to-back troubles. Well, let's go. Let's find another one here. Yeah, 37 says, even if you publish a map all the trouble spots, people won't move. No, they won't. No, they won't. See, unfortunately, people don't believe anything until it happens. Just like this week. This week, some folks are going to see damages. To talk about what will actually happen is futile. It's futile. So people are not going to really hear. Over time, you got to be careful of something, though. Over time, right before the real heavy stuff comes, what I mean by that is, imagine half the U.S. on fire, lit up from lots of incursions, and imagine half the sea is poisoned by summertime. Even that won't be enough to get people to really pay attention.
It already is. Like, the Pacific is from 2004, that tsunami. It's already all radiated. He's behind on that one.
What do I do? So there's an ongoing challenge I have for myself. I have to make sure that I'm, with integrity, prepare things for those who won't prepare things for themselves. All right? You have to be somewhat like a Noah during these times. Do the responsible thing for other people right now, which means they know nothing about it, but provision is set up for them because they won't do it themselves. A lot of people here, you may hear this conversation, but you won't retain it. You won't retain all of it. But then after the event takes place, you'll recall it, right? But at least you could say that somebody in the body of Christ knew these things were coming, right? You could say that. We have a lot coming, and believe me, in comparison to any stringent happenings on the earth, mankind has seen nothing yet. Remember what the Lord said, right? Now, the flood was bad. It killed a lot. But the time coming, the flood can never compare to. In times past, when big meteorites...
It says it's a time that's never been, that never will be before. A hard time.
Jesus was very specific. Concerning the nature of the times to come, he said there was no other time like it since the earth was to the very day. Concerning...
And that's what I just said.
There was no army like it before it, or will be after it. And that's a heavy statement. Concerning the troubles that will be upon the earth, he said, no one has seen trouble like that since the earth was to that very day, or will after. So we know that the time we live in, things of magnitude will happen off the scales. It is not comparable to anything anybody has ever gone through. Not even those who went through the flood in the times of Noah. He said since the earth was created, so the dinosaur die-offs and everything else, they do not compare to what we're about to go through. Mike, what type mass would you recommend? In 2 months, due to some federal programs, they're going to have awareness on ash, right? Right before December, in the month of December will be the best time to pick up a mask for volcanic ash. Volcanic ash, there are several types of it, but most of it is a crystalline substance, which is actually glass. It's like fiberglass. You don't want to inhale that stuff. Animals that inhale that stuff, it's going to go into the bloodstream, go straight to the bones and deform them. All right? It'll kill off the plant life foliage and everything else. It'll poison the waters also because they're highly toxic, right? The ashes. highly toxic. Also, those in low-lying valleys, if the magma does not get them, then the carbon will. They let off so much carbon that one volcano going off um, in parts of the ocean could kill 3/4 of the earth in one night, likely, right? So, those days are coming. They're coming. Mike, would God take someone in death if the spouse wasn't obeying God's will, even if unaware? The question was by Tina in 1960, Mike, would God take someone in death if the spouse wasn't obeying God's will, even if unaware of it? So would God take someone in death if the spouse wasn't obeying? In other words, like if the spouse wasn't obeying, would he take the other person? But here's what you have to do with when it comes to life and death. Number one, life and death, Jesus commands it. No one dies by accident. No one dies prematurely. No one dies, in the ways that we think.
Jesus say you die in Jesus' time, not yours. So that was I don't know. I don't call Mike down. Mike's my favorite teacher, man. I love the guy.
In a lot of cases, he's going to work it out. But if anybody passes from this world, Jesus made that decision. Now, do we know why he made that decision? No, we do not. No, we don't. We only know what the Lord has given us thus far, right? If a spouse is disobeying God's will, if the man is disobeying God's will, so he kills the wife, is that going to bring the man to the Lord's side? That's kind of man stuff right there. Sometimes somebody can just finish their race, happen to have a problem in the relationship, and people will try to make that fit. That's one thing we have to stop doing that and simply ask the Lord, because he's not cruel. He didn't do that tit for tat thing. That's not how he works. He's very purposed, right, in his decrees, very deliberate in what he does. Everything has a very high purpose with him. If somebody passes, they finish their race, he's saving them from the horrors to come, right? Or they're just totally about to corrupt themselves even further, and he takes them prior to that time. But in either case, Jesus has the keys of hell and death in the grave. He does. So he decides when a person stays or goes. Why does he decide now? Because he's the Messiah. He knows when he is rejected fully and when he is not rejected fully. And so long as a person does not reject him fully, he stands at the door and he knocks, and he will continue to knock until he comes back again. Now, when he comes back, those will not be the days where we did not see him, but those will be the days of full manifestation then, and people are going to be where they are. God doesn't, by the way, here on earth, punishment is reserved for the end after the judgment. Now, will he correct his children through chastening them? Yes. He'll correct his children, but he's not cruel. I think in a lot of cases, some people relate one thing to something else that does not fit. We don't have a cruel father. We have a merciful father. None of us deserve life, but we're still alive. So if you're not obeying God, why would he kill me? That's not going to help you any. He delivers us. He's not here to punish us, right? See, people have to take that out of their minds. He even wrote that. He said, if you're corrected as sons. Because God loves you, he corrects you as sons. If he did not love you, he would not correct you, right? I've never read how God corrected someone through killing their spouse or their children. I've not read that. I do believe, however, that we have a Hollywood imagination. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we'll look at how these directors and writers set up a movie, and they express these ideas to us, and we adopt those ideas based upon what we've been exposed to and what we read and what we saw until it becomes part of our reality or something like that. But I don't subscribe to certain things most people subscribe to. If a person passes this world, it is of a high purpose, not a low one. Hmm? Hope I answered that. Hollywood has spoiled us. Let's go ahead and face it, you all. We have read too many science fiction things. Our concepts have been effectively rearranged. And it's very difficult for us sometimes to not think like Hollywood because it's part of our environment. Unless you break away from that, from all those visuals. But I'll tell you something. Whatever you see with your eye becomes part of your reality and environment. And whatever you hear with your ear becomes part of your environment and part of your reality. That includes movies and books and videos that you see and all this other stuff. It becomes part of your reality, which means in order for you to express an idea or to interpret something or make sense of something, you're going to draw upon all those things you have heard and seen. My suggestion would be to fill yourself with the words of truth, to fill your hearing with the words of truth. You know, something beautiful happens in that process. Instead of drawing upon concepts from Hollywood, right? Concepts from what happened in somebody else's life, you're going to start drawing upon truth. And I'm telling you, what you have as a result is totally different than a person who sits down and watches television all the time. You'll start seeing the truth of things. That will add to your stability. That will add to your joy.
Yes, that's why meditating on the Bible day and night is so important. With all the junk around us and all the noise, we're not hearing the noise of our Lord. He, wow, he's going to jump off. Yeah. So we're going to have a meteor impact. I'd like to say sorry. I don't know if Mike is going to. Earlier on, I had a dream that he's going to die. And usually God gives me dreams. But Satan.
It's going to be to the chat room.
Okay, he's just talking the end when the end talks. So today I've been severely attacked. I've been getting severely attacked. I'm even getting pains down in the area because I'm not doing what I usually do. And it happens, eh? And I've been getting dreams from Satan. I woke up with 2 dreams from Satan, one last night, and then when I had a snooze today, another one. So the Spirit's telling me, well, if you're not being attacked by the devil, then you're of his own. See, you have to be attacked by God and Satan. That really proves that you don't even understand what you are. That's what I've been teaching. Okay, guys. So I'll let you go.
Incoming.
Hi, sister. How are you? Okay, guys. Hi.
Oh, you're in a show? I can call you back.
No, I'm done with the show. I'm gonna make. I'm done, guys. Bye. Just give me a second. God bless you guys. Okay, I'm done with it, so it's over. What are you doing?